Hey y'all, okay, we're just getting started here. We're just getting ready for speakers. I'm going to give you a little spin around. Thank you everyone for coming. What a day this has been already. This is our group right here behind me that you can see. That's some ladies that you recognize right there. There's Mary Lou Singleton, Megan Murphy, Kay Yang that we're looking at. We got this. This is the sort of counter group back there that we're dealing with. So they're gonna do some things in this group. But we are getting ready to start. So I'm gonna turn this mic around so that you can see our speakers in front of us. Okay, here we go. And we are going to go to settings, where's camera, and we are going to go to back camera. Sorry, here we go. No. What's your mom wearing? Red and white basic red sleeves. Okay. You got it? Yep, I got it. Okay, so I'm going to give you, I'm going to give you this. Yeah, no, okay. You guys tell me if sound is good. You're good. We're good.
Yes.
Hey, Kelly.
Don't worry about it.
Colin, you're going to stand right here.
All right, welcome to Let Women Speak Austin. Oh, wow. Okay, it takes a lot of courage to commit to this event, especially considering the weather and the fashion. I'm excited to be here, but I'm also totally awestruck. This is even a conversation we need to have in 2023. I got this conversation feeling a little controversial. Women and girls deserve sex-based rights and protection. I want to introduce you to your first speaker. Megan Murphy is a Canadian writer, host of the Same Time podcast, and the founder of Feminist Currents. Hi everyone, I'm Megan Murphy. I hope you can hear me. Everyone for coming out today. To speak up and fight back against women here. I'm here to tell you the truth. I'm here to tell you the truth about this movement, the transgender movement, about what it is and what it's not. This is not a human rights movement. This is not about marginalized population of people. It's not about letting people be themselves. It's not about fighting the gender binary. This is definitely not about protecting kids. It's not about letting people be. What the trans movement is a misogynistic movement started by men. Women are nothing more than a collection of parts. What do we want? What do we want? Now. What do we want? You guys are still. You're still something for us. Shut up. Now. What do we want? Can you hear me? Okay. Here we go. What do we want?
I just want to make sure that we're only picking up mics.
What the trans movement is a misogynistic movement started by men who believe women are nothing more than a collection of parts and stereotypes. That women are nothing more than objects for their taking. Nothing more than a sexualized idea of fetish. This is not a grassroots movement. This is a corporate endeavor started by wealthy men invested in big pharma and biotech and their own narcissistic fantasies. with a host of health problems, medicalized for life. It is a movement that tells women they must sit down and shut up, even if they're in danger, even if they see kids in danger, even if they're subjected to verbal abuse or threats, even if their rights are in jeopardy, even if they know they're being lied to. This is a movement that says that the truth is hate. This is not a feminist movement. It's not about inclusion or love. This is an anti-woman hate movement that is destroying kids' lives and all of the sex-based rights that women have fought for well over a century. This movement is supported by powerful institutions and NGOs across the world, by big media, by big tech, by big pharma, who claims to want to protect the marginalized from hate and violence, yet its activists, its foot soldiers over here, use threats, hate, silencing, censorship, bullying, violence, and verbal abuse as their primary tactics. This movement claims trans women are women, but has dissolved the word woman into nothingness. What is a woman is now a controversial question to ask for the first time in history. This movement is a cover for predatory men who are now being housed in women's prisons as it's their right under gender identity laws embraced by liberal governments that claim to be feminist. It's a cover for predatory men who want access to women and girls' change rooms. And these men are being protected by our politicians, by journalists, journalists, by human rights organizations like the UN and the Human Rights Campaign, by the ACLU, which is meant to defend American civil liberties like CST, not to defend the right of men to silence women who refuse to sign on to their religion or validate their sexual fetishes. Even by women claiming to be feminists who have sold out in the worst possible way and are standing by as women lose everything. This is a movement that is destroying our sense of reality, our language, and our ability to speak the truth. This is a movement that destroys everything it touches, that destroys the very foundations of nature and humanity and democracy. This movement is a lie. Women are adult human females. A mother is a woman and only a woman. Only females give birth. Only females have fetuses. There is and we will not be erased. We will not remain silent while everything we know to be true and everything that has been fought for is lost.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. What do I do? Okay. Okay.
Sousa is a women's rights activist, organizer, writer, and speaker whose work focuses on embodiment. You should probably listen to her. Thank you.
Take that from you. I am a women's rights activist and educator, and I'm here today to make a public record of my dissent. Now is it on? Now?
You want another amplifier? Amy, do you want me to hook your road mic to this?
I have my mic on. Okay, my name is Amy Souza. I am a women's rights activist, educator, and I'm here today to make a public record of my dissent. I have been publicly protesting gender ideology since Biden signed his executive order on gender identity, which replaced all sex-based safeguarding provisions previously in place to protect women and girls on the basis of sex. The erasure of the category of sex for women and girls as wholly embodied human beings into an abstract identity label that any man can claim as his quote identity is not only an assault on women's rights, but an assault on all of our humanity. As Megan Murphy was famously banned from Twitter for saying, men are not women though. To speak this is not an ideological claim. It's not a belief. To say this requires no belief at all. It is only to state the obvious. It is to do what any child does. It is to see and say. I see a man, I say man. A man is a man. There is no adult human man who is not a man. To say otherwise is to disrupt our primal sex recognition instinct. It is to subvert reality. It is gaslighting and it is abuse. Any movement that tells women and children to trust what the strange man tells you about his identity before trusting your own instincts is a predatory movement. Our ability to react instantaneously to perceived threats is a primary safeguarding tool. The gender agenda attempts to train women and children to dissociate from our primal instincts. The erosion of any and all safeguarding provisions for women and girls is sexism and disrupting our primal sex recognition instincts.
Excuse me, guys.
Against our humanity. What do we want? 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 No. This is nihilism. It is the corruption of our most primal species survival for procreation.
Silence women! That's what you do! You silence women! You silence lesbians! You silence bisexual women! You silence lesbian and bisexual women! That's what you do!
Reality of our spaces are sexually dimorphic. This curriculum taught in the schools that we are currently seeing, the adult educators in our classrooms, which are coercing kids into an ideology of gender identity and coerced pronouns. This is a disruption of the child's naturally bodily authority to name what they see in front of them and their own ability to trust their bodies to tell them the truth about the world. The genderbred person and gender unicorn that teaches them concepts like gender identity and gender expression are abstract, undefined, and constitute an anti-reality fantasy. Kids are being taught that their bodies are compartmentalized, that their minds, hearts, and genitals and expressions are all separate things. Kids are taught that they are a collection of unrelated parts rather than whole. But our bodies are not Legos. The integrity of our body's holistic wisdom is far smarter than any plastic surgeon's knife. This is ultimately the value set of commodification, as kids are taught the consumerist notion that they can amputate their body parts and purchase separate body parts so that their so-called expression matches their mental conception of their identity. What is happening to kids is larger than any one educator, larger than any one school curriculum. It's an ideology coming at them from all angles, social media and entertainment, and it constitutes grooming. violations over time. A good metaphor for grooming is the slow boiling frog who does not sense it is being cooked until it is too late. It is not only adults with a specific target in mind that groom, organizations also groom, ideologies also groom. Kids who have been subjected to the slow erosion of their boundaries over time are more vulnerable to future predation. Secondary sex recognition is a primary instinct. It is one of the most basic instincts, along with fight, flight, food recognition, and sex drive. These educators are disrupting the primary instincts of children. They are grooming them into a state of dissociation. Expert Gavin DeBecker underscores the importance of intuition and instincts in the gift of fear. Every other mammal on the planet teaches their young to trust their primary instincts. Humans are the only animal that is currently teaching their young to dissociate from their most basic safeguarding tools. Our kids deserve adults who set boundaries. They deserve adults who teach them to respond to their instincts and not dissociate. Please join me in protecting our kids.
Okay. All right, one of the kids that needed protecting and was not protected is Prisha Mosley, a former transgender child identified at 15, affirmed at 16, and medicalized at 16. She is now detransitioning and advocating for the truth of biological reality. Prisha.
My name is Prisha Mosley. I believed that I was a boy when I was 15 years old. I was groomed online from the anorexia community, but I'm here to tell you that biological reality exists. It is not needful, it is immutable, and it cannot be changed. Trust me, I tried.
It is impossible to change your sex. I removed my breasts and I took testosterone for years, and I am still a woman. I always was, and there's nothing I can do to change that. Removing body parts and taking hormones had no effect on my womanhood. I remain a female, and that is immutable. Mimicking the opposite sex will not cure your mental health. Because it is impossible to change sex, mimicking the opposite sex is your only option, and this is not mental health care. We have already tried operating on the body to fix mental health with lobotomies. Lobotomies do not work. Gender affirming care does not work. There is no such thing as informed consent. You cannot consent if you are not conformed. Not only was I lied to by omission, but I was lied to about the fact that I could change sex. I was told I would grow a penis. This isn't going to happen. It is impossible to change sex, and you can't consent if you're not fully informed. Children can also not consent. Neither can those who are mentally ill or under grave mental distress. It is our duty as people who are rational and mentally well to protect those who are not rational and who are not mentally well and who are vulnerable, even if that means protecting them from themselves or from doctors.
Yes. Okay, you hand that to you. I don't know. Hold this down. I think Michelle's gonna introduce me. Is Michelle gonna? She is? Okay. I'll introduce myself. I'm Mary Lou Singleton. I'm a midwife and a nurse practitioner and a mother, and I've been fighting against this issue, fighting for the rights of women and girls on this particular issue for over 10 years.
So the first thing I want to say is I'm so tired of this stupid issue. Literally everyone who is mentally competent knows that human beings cannot change sex. We all know the difference between a man and a woman. We all know that no amount of synthetic hormones, surgeries, or makeup can turn a man into a woman. I've been speaking on this issue for over 10 years, and I still can barely believe that it remains controversial to say that humans are a sexually dimorphic species. Male and female are set in stone at the moment of fertilization, and literally no one can change their biological sex. Like many women who lean left, or who used to lean being 100% pro-trans rights. Go ahead and be trans and proud was my stance. Then I saw what was happening. These men, and in midwifery, many women, weren't content being trans and proud. They insisted we had to pretend that they had actually changed sex. Then they insisted that there was no such thing as biological sex. Biological sex is a mysterious spectrum. Only gender and internal sense of girliness and boyishness was real. These men who had fathered children in heterosexual relationships insisted we had to pretend they had always been female. Then they started wanting to be called mothers of the children they had fathered with the sperm that came out of their still functioning penises. They even said we couldn't refer to menstruation as female, except when it involved their menstruation fetishes. Then we had to pretend they really did get a period if they said so. And it wasn't just a couple of bad apples who were forcing us to play along. They took over Planned Parenthood, now the nation's largest dispenser of cross-sex hormones. They took over midwifery organizations. They erased the words woman and mother from the language of birth. They accused us of reducing women to their genitals while they renamed us people born with vulvas. They insisted we call ourselves ovulators, menstruators, gestating parents. Women who questioned the language changes were fired and forever blacklisted from work in academia and the nonprofit sector. In 2016, an admitted rapist named Cherno Beko, who says he is a woman and who tried to forcibly impregnate someone to make a queer baby, got to speak.
Trans rights are human rights.
Sorry.
Trans rights are human rights.
There.
Trans rights are human rights.
Got to speak on stage at the Women's March, and an ocean of women in pussy hats cheered him on. Then those women got excoriated for the hate crime of wearing pussy hats because these hats were now transphobic. And on it went. And many of us came to the chilling realization that this racism. Overuse of the word patriarchy aside, we continue to live in a world where girls and women are exploited by men because of our reproductive capacity. When male authority figures take to the airwaves every election season to tell us that if they are elected, women and girls will be forced to give birth to rapist babies, these men are not participating in gender oppression. They are terrorizing and oppressing women on the basis of sex. I fight for the class of people oppressed on the basis of biological sex. These people are called female, girls, women. The transgender movement has obliterated our ability to name this class of people, and if we cannot name them, we cannot fight for them. We are bombarded with propaganda aimed at convincing us that the most oppressed women and girls are the women and girls who are actually men and boys. The entire political left and most of our
regulated breeding. This is because trans women are male. As a female person, I'm very aware of what I might face had I been born anywhere else in the world. I agonize every day over what my sisters are enduring globally. Female fetuses are aborted in the womb when a vulva shows up in the ultrasound. They're smothered to death soon after birth due to the fact that they are born with a vulva. They are fed less than their penis siblings. They are denied education.
They are legally the wards of male relatives, unable to leave the house without being covered head to toe and accompanied by a male of the age of 13. They are sold to men as rape and breeding slaves, and the world calls it child marriage. They are abducted from school by Boko Haram.
They are raped, they're impregnated, then shunned by the whole village upon returning from that house. Men around the world continue to know how to discern male from female, and this discernment continues to lead to atrocities committed against females. If trans activists would like to join the fight against these and other sex-based atrocities, I would welcome that. Instead, trans activists are more interested in forcing women to adhere to the linguistic demands of males who assert they are female, and forcing women to pretend to agree that penises can be female organs. I support all people in their right to believe whatever they believe about themselves and the world. I believe trans people should be free to have freedom of expression and be free of discrimination in housing, healthcare, and employment. I condemn physical violence against anyone. I do not believe that trans people have a right to insist that I capitulate to gender ideology or compel me to use words I do not believe are true. I am part of a global movement to end sex-based oppression. We cannot end sex-based oppression without being able to recognize and name biological sex. If trans activists would like to join this fight in a way that does not eliminate our concise words for ourselves and our ability to name what is happening to us, sex-based oppression, males oppressing females, I would welcome that. Instead, trans activists are intent on stopping women from speaking, and they are upset that female people are not using our resources and energy to fight for the rights of males to declare themselves female. Can we get a microphone? I'm gonna just move without Michelle. Carrie, you want to go? Yep. You guys don't even know why you're doing it. No, you don't even know why you're doing it. You guys have no idea what you're doing. Hello, ladies. We can make as much noise as these guys do. We just choose not to scream and make ourselves look as foolish as they are. I just wanted to say, I used to be in that world. I used to be in that cult. It's a lot bigger than this transing kids issue. And it does operate like a cult. And I just want to say, watch the way they behave and not what they speak. Because words can be empty. They come out here and they speak about hatred while behaving in a very hateful way. They say that they're for our rights, for people's rights, but they try and shut down legitimate free speech. This way? This way? I said, these people behave like a cult, and I think it's important to look at the way they behave rather than the words they say, because there are a lot of people who speak empty words. They're out here talking about hatred while behaving in a hateful way. They say that they're out here for people's rights while they try and prevent people from exercising their right to speak and be heard. And I'm so glad I'm not in that woke cult anymore, because I look at these people and I think they look not just like buffoons, but utterly possessed. And I just want to say, just very quickly, not everybody here is a believer. I love the fact that we're all from different walks of life. We have different opinions. We disagree on things, but we've all come together to speak the truth here today. And if you will allow me just quickly, if there are any believers, I want to say the Lord's Prayer, because that's something we can all say together loudly. And if you're not a believer, just thank you for your tolerance and hearing me say it. At the very least, if you're not a believer, I hope you can agree that these people seem possessed. Okay, so the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation,
but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Thank you, ladies, for coming out.
Good job, Gary. Good job.
Thank you. Oh. Thank you.
Libby.
Is this it right here? Is that?
Oh, are you going?
You could go next. That's cool. I'm pretty short, but I'll do whatever you want.
I just Michelle left and I didn't know the order of operations. I was just trying to put people up.
Okay.
Sorry, Libby.
Ready to go? Okay. What? I'm Tracy Shannon, and I am a trans widow. That means my husband left me and our kids after 15 years in marriage to identify as a woman. The first time I saw the teeth of this transgender movement was when my then husband and I went to a therapist to address his cross-dressing. What I didn't know was it was a setup. The therapist told me that I was closed-minded because I didn't accept my husband's cross-dressing. She also told me that I must be a lesbian because my husband that I fell in love with and married had this inner feminine side that I was unaware of for all those years. And at that point, it was 4 years. 11 years later, I would find out that my husband had been given a letter by that therapist without my knowledge, and that he had gone to an endocrinologist and got hormones, and he had been on the years of our marriage. If you don't know what hormones do, female hormones do to a man, it makes their libido almost nothing. It makes them infertile. I didn't know. I thought problems in our marriage were because of me, because I was told it was my fault that we didn't have intimacy. I think it's cruel, unprofessional, and unethical for doctors to do this. When we eventually divorced because he decided he was going to transition, I found out that he had changed his name and his sex identifier on his driver's license without me knowing. When we went to court in Texas, before Obergefell was even a thing, before Bruce became Caitlin, he was in court divorcing me as a woman. I was divorcing a woman in court. I married a man. Our divorce papers have a female name and my name. I'm not a lesbian, but the state of Texas made me a paper lesbian. I felt betrayed by my state and the medical establishment. The court ordered my kids into therapy with a therapist to make them comfortable with the idea that their dad was now a woman and to make him comfortable. The therapist told my kids they can no longer call their father dad. I can't think of anything sadder than that. And they don't want us to say we're trans widows because they say nobody died. I assure you, to my children, it was like a death. But it wasn't just one death. It wasn't one time. It was over and over and over. The kids cried themselves to sleep for years. Years. And we didn't have a funeral. We didn't get any sympathy. And we didn't get a crappy casserole either. In court, I was asked, how could I, a Christian and a conservative, co-parent with this lovely trans woman? Do you see where this is going? For your rights as a
conservative, for your rights to have the beliefs that you want, whether you're conservative or not. You must ideology or you will be seen as unfit. This was more than a decade ago, before this movement even sharpened its teeth. And in court every day for over a week, I was coerced they tried to coerce me to call my ex by female pronouns and refer to him in a female name. I would not do it. But today, I would be held and thrown in jail for that because things have changed. And the men who dress as women are being prioritized over the women. Nobody is talking about the downstream carnage of this ideology and the marketing effort behind it and the medical industrial complex that's hurting people. And it's irreversible. The idea that you must adhere to their religious beliefs of gender ideology is already here, and it was here over a decade ago. When I tell people how my marriage ended, I get a lot of unsympathetic responses. At least he can be happy now, they say. How can we assume happiness? If this ideology says we cannot even assume gender, we sure as hell cannot assume happiness, especially when we know what the reported suicide rate is. They're so fragile they can't handle being misgendered or having a pronoun mislaunched, but they're so happy. I call bullshit. We're told this population is at a high risk of anxiety, depression, and experiences suicide, but many believe at the same time that they're on the pursuit of happiness. Give me a break. Fulfillment, fantasy, fetish should be a lower priority than the family and the marriage commitment. As a trans widow, I can testify to the unethical, dishonest, and fraudulent nature of the gender industry. I can also tell you from my experience and experience of many trans widows I talk to that most of these men are autogynephiles. That means men who are turned on by the thought of themselves as a woman. That means they go into the women's restroom, a lot of them, and there's plenty of this online you can find, these men accessing women's restrooms and self-pleasuring themselves. We don't want them in our spaces. We don't know who's safe. They should not be allowed to access female spaces. They should not be in locker rooms, bathrooms, dormitories, shelters, or women's housing. Shame on Texas for allowing men to get an ID and other records stating they are women. A complete fiction that allows men to access women's spaces and assist them in the erasure of a father and a husband. I am Tracy Shannon. I am a trans widow because when a husband transitions, it feels like a death. For the children, it feels like a death. It needs to put House Bill 3883 by Alan Troxclair on a special call. He needs to put women first in Texas behind this ideological religion of gender identity. And these women, these handmaidens over there, you serve misogynistic, fetishist men. That's who you serve. Let women speak. There is nothing more despicable than women telling other women to sit down and shut up. Let women speak.
Can someone be the holder of this? Yeah, we got it. Okay, great. Thank you. Can I put this on you? Thank you, Libby.
Libby Evans, everybody!
Hi.
Read a chant while she's not talking. I got the mic on.
Womanhood is not a feeling. Gender is not the soul. Medical technology cannot magically change your sex. No child is born in the wrong body. There are no boy toys and girl toys. Amputating a young girl's breast is not affirmation. Healthy children don't need drugs or surgeries to be their true selves. Puberty and adolescence are not illnesses that need to be cured. It is better to grab hold. It is better to wait and see. Teach your daughters that womanhood is not a curse. Teach your sons that gender isn't a kink. Let them know it's okay to be gay. Fight back against the pharmaceutical industrial complex that would see us become lifelong medical patients in service to corporate profit. Fight back against an educational system that blindly pushes the lies of gender ideology on children and claims to be liberation. Fight back against activists that change our language and seek to eliminate women's spaces entirely under the guise of compassion for those men who want access to them. Fight back against politicians that pass laws to eliminate parental rights, enshrine gender identity into law, and demand compliance under threat of prosecution. They want to do what's popular, not what's right. Women's identity is not up for debate. We get to define what we are. We get to say these are our bodies, these are our hearts, our souls, our mothers, our daughters. These are my sisters. We are begging for our right to exist. We demand it. We are not long hair and dresses. We are not lipstick and high heels. We are simply female. We are half the species, and that is not negotiable. You've taken too much from us, and we want it back.
Yeah.
We want it all back, and we're here to take it. We are taking back our words, our bodies, our spaces, and our lives. Speak up, don't back down. Truth matters, and reality is worth fighting for. Thank you.
Thank you, Libby. All right, Amy. All right, we got the Amy Ichikawa coming up of Keep Prisons of, Women to Women.
Nice and loud. Nice and loud.
Okay. And then, wait, I don't get it. Can you Sister? Hi. How's it going? You guys come here often? Okay. Oh boy. All right. My name is Amy Ichikawa. I'm formerly incarcerated, and I'm the founder and executive director of Women to Women based in California. I have maintained direct contact with women in prison in California since 2013. When the Gender Self-ID policy, the Transgender Respect Agency and Dignity Act began implementation in 2021, life as we knew it and life for women in prison was dramatically changed. This law was marketed to them as a safe alternative for trans women who were being sexually assaulted at an incredibly high rate, which trans women in men's prison have confirmed is not fucking true. Before the move started, staff quietly put up posters with instructions for what options an inmate has should they become pregnant, which are Plan B, abortion, we're at March at Affirming parade, and anyways, or the adoption process. You can imagine the horror that these signs were met with. It was just as bad as when they put the condom dispensers up in the women's prisons. When the first bus of transfers from the men's prison pulled up,
with football-sized players, child molesters, rapists, and woman beaters. They walked into the biggest victim pool that a predator could ever hope for. This law was tactically written in a way that is ushering in an era of predator prioritization. In prison, these people are above the law. They now have become an untouchable privileged group with rights that no women in prison have ever seen. Upon arrival, they're asked what their pronouns and honorifics are. When I got to the prison, nobody asked me what I wanted to be called. I was called X37739. Transfers are allowed to pick their bunkie. They can get anyone removed from an 8-person cell. They can get a bed move or a yard move whenever they want. They can accuse the women that they harass and rape of harassment. They can even have single cell status if they so choose. Their perception of their own health and safety is strongly taken into consideration regarding any decisions made about their bodies. Please hold. These are not rights that have been stripped from transgender people. These are rights that nobody has ever had. If these people are caught beating their girlfriend until they miscarry and force her to bury the baby on the yard, there are no consequences. Violence is recorded as female mutual combat, if it's even recorded. There are no more statistics. There is no way to keep accurate records because we are no longer dealing with reality. Violence, okay, sorry. There's, my bad. Women who have stood up against this have lost everything. Kathleen Quinn was granted parole after 20 years, and after she wrote an inmate complaint about a man who was constantly violating her privacy, her parole was vacated. This movement has stolen women's liberty. Women in prison are not even people anymore. They're predatory men's prey. Many of these transfers are PC protective custodies whose state has nowhere else to house safely. So gender self-ID has successfully turned women's prison into a dumping ground for PCs. There's a family member of the Mexican mafia who has a notorious rape record for raping men. He killed another man in men's prison, and he's now residing in women's prison. He just told his roommate that it didn't matter how loud she screams because nobody was going to do anything. She was instructed by staff to set her own boundaries and to shut up. She asked for mental health support, and they told her to stop being transphobic. These are the same mental health clinicians that told Tamikia Johnson that they felt unsafe when she was explaining how she was being harassed and stalked by a man in women's prison. Healthcare has historically been a nightmare. Until recently, California was performing hysterectomies strictly for eugenic purposes. Dr. Heinrich said he was doing the state of California a favor. Women can't get breast reductions, but men can get breast implants. The women who have been drinking and bathing in arsenic and hexavalent chromium-laden water cannot get anything. They are watching themselves being erased. Know that the erasure these women are experiencing, the screams that go unheard, the cries for help no one responds to, is nothing but a test run for the things that are going to happen to us if we don't stop the female erasure that's occurring in the prisons now. Incarcerated women matter, and if you think that they don't, you're wrong, because they're us and we are them. And Mayor Abbott, I know you're holding migrant women in men's prison.
Thank you. Will you introduce yourself?
Yeah.
Or however you like to be introduced.
Can I hand you this? Do I just push this? Push it down?
Just talking.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing tonight? I am a woman and a lesbian, and I'm here to speak. Thank you to everyone who is listening to women speak. You can find me on Instagram as _a.swax. Shout out. And if anyone wants to help me write a gender critical sketch comedy show, hit me up on Instagram. But this is a bit more serious. I'd like to tell a story about a time I tried to go to a lesbian bar, or rather I did go to a lesbian bar. And it used to be a lesbian bar, but it got colonized and now is filled with men and men who call themselves women and spicy straights, or the straight people who go looking for a third or are just super kinky. Very fun to go there and still feel isolated and alone as a lesbian. But I had a pretty good time. I met some women, we danced, we flirted, I was able to relax. I was in such a good mood, I decided to compliment this beautiful man. He was wearing a cocktail dress, he clearly had breast implants, probably took estrogen. He was a very good looking man, not my type because I'm a lesbian, a adult human female homosexual, but I went up to this man and I said, "You are so gorgeous." And after I said that, in a span of 30 seconds to 1 minute, he had my shirt up over my chest, exposing me to the club, making out with me, and he put his hand down my pants and put his fingers inside me. Now, I had one of two options. I could have punched him in the fucking face, but I didn't want to get the cops involved. So I was able to escape within a minute, and I went and found my friends. Now, this is the part that really traumatized me. I got in the car with my roommate and her boyfriend and a mutual friend, and I said, "That dude just put his fingers inside me." And my roommate said, and I quote, "I'm pretty sure that person identifies as a woman. You should use she, her." My jaw dropped. How could my friend, my roommate, care more about this stranger's feelings than the fact that I had just been assaulted in a lesbian bar by a man that calls himself a woman? This is not to demonize all men, hashtag not all men. There are some great men. This is a great man holding this megaphone for me. There are men who wear dresses that are great men. I can't see any at the moment, but they are out there. Trust me, I do know some. The point of this story is to talk about the betrayal I felt by my friend, who was a fellow woman, and she prioritized the feelings of men above my safety, above lesbian spaces, because here's a shocker, my friend is straight. But even lesbians and bisexual women are still advocating for men's feelings over women's safety. And they're still advocating for men who call themselves women to go into lesbian spaces that are supposed to be exclusively single sex. If there is no single sex space for women, there is no lesbian community. You cannot call yourself an ally to lesbians if you do not advocate for single sex spaces for women. And I'd like to close with these remarks. Women are allowed to call men, men. Women are allowed to call men he, him. And women's boundaries will be respected. We as women say no, and you will respect that no. And this just one time, because I said I would, they can chant, we can chant. When I say viva, you say the vulva. Viva! Viva! When I say viva, you say the vulva. Viva! Viva! All right, thanks, y'all. Gabrielle Clark! Yes! Gabrielle Clark!
All right, you introduce yourself. We're gonna wait until they pass by. Sure. We'll wait until the band passes by.
We were there a second ago, but they were closer there.
Where did Prisha and
What would you think of?
Prisha? Look. I'm gonna. It's After they pass by one.
Don't cheer for them, Antifa. They're women.
I am my mother's savage daughter. I want to for cursing sounds. I am my mother's savage daughter. I will not cut my hair. I will not lower my voice. I am my mother's savage daughter, the one who runs mad for cursing sounds. I am my mother's savage daughter. I will not cut my hair. I will not lower my voice.
I am my mother's savage daughter, the one who runs barefoot cursing shot sounds. I am my mother's savage daughter. I will not cut my hair. I will not lower my voice. All right, we done? Right. I'm sorry. All right. Right on. How do I do it? Am I doing it? Just press the button? I don't know. Okay. My name is Gabrielle Clark. And I speak for the voiceless women. Tamika Johnson is in prison with men in California. And she has a message for us. Women in prison are experiencing a hostile takeover by biological inmates who don't want to serve their sentences in men's prisons. It's a misnomer to think integration is just, fair, and equal when women's prisons are one of the few places where separate is safe and equal. Don't let the misuse of Brown versus the Board of Education fool you into thinking that these race-based civil rights apply to gender. The reason why women's prisons are separate from men's upholds the Constitution as women are more equally protected when they are housed safely away from men. If indigenous women in prisons were adequately supported by public good, we could win a portion of this gender battle that is adjacent to free people's gender battles. We could set a precedent that pours over to women's and girls' locker rooms, swim teams, track and field, basketball courts, and MMA octagons. A victory for incarcerated women represents a victory for girls and women everywhere. All women should be able to thrive among good company, ourselves. Presently, women housed in the Central California Women's Facility, the largest women's prison in the world, are being hampered by Dana Rivers, born David Warfield. He was the enforcer of a motorcycle club. Evidence is in the gang's tattoos. Deviant on his body to remind the women why he assassinated his primary victim, then stabbed her 44 times, 37 to her face, post-mortem, leaving her unrecognizable as she quit the deviants. Women speculate Rivers is a white supremacist who murdered a white lesbian woman because he also didn't agree with her marriage to a black woman. He murdered. And then, black son, he shot in the back. Rivers was caught running from their home covered in his victim's blood. Now black and lesbian women in the CCWF live in jeopardy. Rivers traded his motorcycle for a wheelchair, pretending feebleness and demanding women push him around. Broken people, black people, and I am breaking. Women in prison need help. That is from Tamika Johnson, and she is a voiceless women. And women won't waste. Yeah, right.
Thank you. All right.
Good evening. Do I hold it? Hold it on? Good evening. I'm Jennifer Thomas, aka American Turf. Yesterday, we were at the DC Capitol protesting the ACLU, and I'm here today to talk a little more about the ACLU. The reason men are in women's prisons is because of the ACLU. The ACLU looks for niche cases so it can set precedents and get men into women's prison. And the policy, they did it in every state. They did it in your schools. They did it at your work. They did it everywhere. The ACLU is our enemy, and we are aiming at the ACLU. Women are saying no to the ACLU. There is no American Civil Liberties Union without half the population. One of the swim mothers called the ACLU from when Will Thomas was swimming at the Penn at the Ivy League schools, right? Will Thomas. She called the ACLU, and the lawyer that she talked to said they would never prioritize cis women above women, meaning men. So the ACLU is bought and paid for by the gender industry, and they are the legal agent of the gender industry. And we are at part 2 of this. Will Thomas was the exposure button. The ACLU is the real problem. We are going to ferret them out and create a new legal entity that protects all Americans, including women. Well, that's really what I had to say here. We're at the state capitol in Austin. Yes, yesterday at DC. Today, state capitol in Austin. And we're going to keep going because you know what? The people are with us.
All right, Laura.
So how do I operate the thingy? I have to press?
Just talk into that and press.
Okay. Are you going to introduce me? Or? All right. Hello. My name is Laura Becker. Hey. And I'm a 26-year-old detransitioned woman. It's an honor to be speaking today with this groovy group of women fighting for sanity. The radical activists, liars and manipulators will try to gaslight us that our experiences are singular, discrete, and not universal. But the case study of my life is existential. Listen to my experiences and see if this sounds similar to someone you know, to your own distressed child, to your autistic friend, to yourself as a gender non-conforming child, or as a trauma survivor. At age 11, I was diagnosed with autism. I was also diagnosed with an endocrine disorder, polycystic ovary syndrome. Both of these conditions correlate to a high rate of depression, anxiety, and body dysmorphia. Around puberty, I also experienced psychological, emotional, and verbal abuse from a parent. I developed severe depression and started having suicidal ideation. I didn't know this at the time, but I developed trauma, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. At 16, I then developed symptoms of gender dysphoria. When I was 18, I was so suicidal and desperate to feel loved and accepted for who I was that I identified as transgender and non-binary. I didn't feel like I could be an eccentric woman the way that I was, and I didn't think that I would ever love myself. At 19, I went to a gender clinic and told them I was suicidal, and they prescribed me 200 milligrams of testosterone for free in a 1-hour appointment. I injected 200 milligrams of testosterone every week as a 5'2" female with already elevated testosterone from polycystic ovarian syndrome. My mental health severely degenerated, and I entered an impulsive and reckless state of consciousness. My undiagnosed trauma was triggered, and I felt desperate to transition and become my true self. I went to several different therapists who told me I was quote unquote valid in my trans identity. My psychiatrist diagnosed me with gender dysphoria in one appointment, despite being suicidal, autistic, and exhibiting symptoms of trauma. She said that according to the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, that I was stable enough to consent to removing my breasts by having a radical. She and my general practitioner wrote letters of recommendation for surgery under the affirmation only model. And at 20, I had my breasts removed from my body. I thought it would relieve at least some of my complex distress, but it didn't. My trauma symptoms only got worse. And at 22, I was finally diagnosed with PTSD. I started to awaken and realize that I had been in a survival state for all this time. And the desire to transition was due to childhood trauma and the illusionary magical thinking of the gender transition fantasy that I developed to help me survive. It had hurt me in the long run, and I detransitioned at 22 and have been deprogramming ever since. I'm now several years into trauma-informed therapy for complex PTSD, and have embraced myself with confidence as an artist, writer, and speaker. My artist and musician name is Funk God, because I am a supremely groovy woman. I'm now 26, and now that long-term planning has kicked in, and I'm aware and furious that I was given unethical and abusive mental health care as a traumatized girl. I will never be able to breastfeed or enjoy the natural sensuality of my uniquely female body. I will always have a disfigured female form because of the lies of this quote-unquote life-saving care. Awakening on my own path has led to the realization that thousands of children and parents are being indoctrinated in the same lies. Nefarious forces in government, technology, academia, and medicine are profiting from citizens believing that body modification is healthy, compassionate, and progressive. Our intuition that we are told to suppress knows it is not. Recently, as I've been making waves, I've had my speech suppressed as a detrans woman. All of my, quote, funky human female and 100% groovy, 100% woman items in my Funk God store activated by Etsy for promoting hate speech and bigotry. There's nothing hateful about being female, but being appreciative of womanhood does go against the transhumanist corporations who profit from our disembodiment. This is why I speak out about this, for the sake of my inner child, and for every funky kid out there who needs protection from insecurity, illusions, and lies. I've made a new independent store for all my funky human females. So resist manipulation, trust your intuition, and above all, speak the truth. Stay funky!
All right. You ready, Kay? Okay.
We're gonna turn the camera around.
Okay.
I heard they were closest bathroom to the Capitol, but I think they.
Okay, come see me for a second. Kay. Kay.
You know about a bathroom?
You're just over there?
Yeah.
I'm following you.
All right. Can you hold this? Sorry. Amy! Amy in Chicago!
I mean, there's bathrooms, but then I think about like where do you want to be going?
No, they're gonna stand by my side. Amy, are you gonna stand?
Business is down here, but again, do you really want to go?
Yeah, exactly.
Hold on 1 second.
Right here.
Somebody hold this. One more. Want to hold this?
Stand right next to her. Oh, I don't know. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I know they have cold water there and it's cooler. I have my own. Yeah, thank you.
Michelle, are you going to introduce us or no? Never mind. Okay. All right, everybody. All right, as a young teen, long before it became a cool thing to do, I helped to start my high school's first Gay Straight Alliance, and later as a young adult employee at an LGBT nonprofit, I helped establish these clubs, now called Gender Sexuality Alliances. Under the guise of school safety, anti-bullying, and inclusivity, gender identity was sold to unsuspecting parents and teachers as a well-intended and important initiative. I genuinely believed that we were creating safe spaces for students to find themselves. I was oblivious to the fact that I was being used in service of a dark agenda. I was a rank and file foot soldier being used as bait. Myself and other compassionate young people have been weaponized without our knowledge into a Trojan horse. By behind the rainbows and glitter and hollow messages of inclusivity and kindness is a sinister agenda to usher in widespread acceptance of the sexualization and medicalization of children under the auspices of health and human and education. One of the most effective means of change is to control public education. Poised as experts, myself and staff at the LGBT Center worked with businesses, medical providers, and schools to help them to change their language, their minds and behavior, and ultimately our culture and society at large. So-called experts from the LGBT centers are no longer required intermediaries at schools, as the entire public education system is being utilized to implement the new programming throughout American classrooms. In his 1952 book, The Impact of Science on Society, Bertrand Russell wrote, "Social psychologists of the future will have a number of classes of school children on whom they will try different methods of producing an unshakable conviction that snow is black. When the technique has been perfected, every government that has been in charge of education for more than one generation will be able to control its subjects securely." End quote. Training an individual to believe a man can magically transform into a female is no less astonishing of a feat than training one to believe that snow is black, or grass is blue, or the sky is green. Gender identity. Gender identity is a powerful tool for controlling an increasingly technologically interconnected society. It is also foundational to the establishment of a new global economy. According to Global Market Insights, the global sex reassignment market is expected to surpass $1.95 billion by 2032. In order to feed this ravenous industry, more children must assume a trans identity. In 2022, the UCLA Williams School of Law reported 1.6 million children 13 and up now claim a trans identity in the U.S. This rise is attributed to children feeling safe to come out and better data collection. But in reality, it's indicative of widespread social engineering and propaganda. Children are not trans. Children are not trans. 10 years ago, no one had ever heard of a trans child. Unbeknownst to me, my role as education and outreach coordinator at the LGBT Center was helping to pave the way for the manufacturing and acceptance of the mass-produced trans child. I am a first-hand witness to the financial incentive and motive behind pushing children to adopt trans identities. I collated data for program-wide reports required by our funders at the New York State Department of Health. More teens reporting LGBT identities meant more funding for public indoctrination initiatives under the guise of LGBT health and human services. The New York Department of Health announced a non-binary option for birth, marriage, and death certificates for New Yorkers in alignment with guidelines from the World Health Organization. Their gender mainstreaming manual, the WHO announced they're going beyond non-binary approaches to gender and health to recognize the concepts that gender identity exists on a continuum and that sex is not limited to male or female. All United Nations member states universally endorsed and called for accelerated implementation of gender mainstreaming as the global strategy for so-called gender equality when they adopted the Sustainable Development Goals in 2015. The Sustainable Development Goals are a joint endeavor between the United Nations, national and local governments, the private sector, nonprofits, academia, and multilateral organizations to restructure the world's economy, society, and environment by the year 2030. Leave it. UN Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez called on all sectors of society to, quote, mobilize and embed the needed transitions in the policies, budgets, institutions, and regulatory frameworks of government, cities, and local authorities, and to activate youth, nonprofits, the media, the private sector, unions, academia, and other stakeholders to generate what they call an unstoppable movement pushing for the required transformations. Goal 5, gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls, is the keystone achievement underpinning the global goals. Within the UN's definition of gender identity, the term women and girls includes biological men and boys. I need water. The duplicitous goal of gender equality applies pressure on nation states and international governing bodies to rewrite policies, supplant legal language, and erode the sex-based protections for women and girls around the world. I'm almost done. Embedded within the Sustainable Development Goals is a hidden in plain sight scheme to effectively eradicate the binary of sex as a measurable category. The attack on our female sex-based rights in the name of gender identity, LGBT equality, and trans rights must be understood as part of a strategically orchestrated campaign, financed and managed by the world's most powerful institutions, not only for the preservation of increasingly exploitative global economic growth and consolidation of power, but in order to shake the very foundations of what it means to be a man, a boy, a woman, or girl, to redefine what it means to be a human. My name is Kay Yang, and this is a public record of my dissent. I will not comply, I do not consent, and I will not capitulate. Join me, join us in holding the line for women, for children, for future generations, and for humanity.
Which way do I turn it? I like this, right?
All right, ready?
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah, you do whatever you do. What you do? You know. My name is Gabrielle Clark, and being a woman is my birthright. It is an experience I am having. It is the means by which we grow. You cannot opt into it. You cannot ask to be a part of it. There is no surgery. There is no feeling that you can feel that will make you so. You are born a woman. I am a woman from my hair follicles to my toenails. Every single cell in my body is female. They came after my daughter. They came after my baby, and I pulled my baby out of that cult. And you can pull your kids out of that cult too. Every parent that hears me, hear me when I say you can bring your babies back. You can get them out of that cult. You can do it. I did it. Lots of mothers are doing it. You do not have to capitulate. You do not have to listen to the trans cult. You do not have to listen to the government. You do not have to listen to the medical association. And I'm gonna sue that goddamn telephone. That's right. We are not going to sit around anymore and allow our children to be mutilated. Allow their souls to be raped by this nightmare. I created a program for my daughter called Affirming Reality, and that's what we do. We will affirm reality for our children so they can be firmly rooted in the ground, firmly rooted in reality, so that they can make it to adulthood intact. We do not have to live this nightmare anymore. We know better now. We know their game. We know the things that they do. We know the tricks that they play. They cannot force us to comply with this lie anymore. Being a woman is my birthright. I was born this way. It is free for me to walk out of my door every single day as a woman. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to put on any makeup. I don't have to comb my hair a certain way. When people look at my palms, they don't have to decide whether or not it's man or woman. I'm a girl. I was born a woman. I was born a female. So was my daughter. You do not have to capitulate to this nightmare anymore. Take back your children. Take back your societies. Take back your schools. Take back your governments, your local and state governments, and get this nightmare out of there, just like we did in Texas. Yeah. There is no child born in the wrong body. There is no such thing as feeling like a woman. You cannot opt into it. It is an experience that we're having. My name is Gabrielle Clark. Bring your children back. Bring your society back. Take care of your lives.
Are we? Are we opening up to public?
Yes. We're here. Here we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you trying to talk again? Okay. Sorry.
Thank you, everybody, for braving this crowd and coming out. We're going to open the mic up for any woman who wants to share why women's sex-based rights need to be protected in the state of Texas. Why Greg Abbott needs to act to protect women's sex-based rights.
Is this the button? Okay.
Nice and loud.
My name is Prisha Mosley. I'm a detransitioned woman, and I was always a woman. I was a woman while I was identifying as a man. I was a woman while I was injecting testosterone into my body, and I am a woman now, most likely infertile, missing my breasts, and unable to breastfeed. I was captured online by trans rights activists who invaded the pro-anorexia community. This cult feeds on the most vulnerable of us, but I'm here with a message of validation instead of affirmation. Your feelings are real, but they are not true. Your distress is real, it deserves attention, and it deserves proper medical care. Your body parts should not be removed because you're in distress. Your distress is real, your distress is valid, and you deserve to be properly treated for it. To parents, I would like to say, if you do not validate your child who believes that they are born in the wrong body and validate their feelings because they are real and not true, the cult is waiting to affirm them. If you do not give them validation, they will run towards affirmation. Please validate your children. Hear their feelings. They are real, they are suffering, and they need actual help, trauma-informed care, and therapy. Thank you.
Crazy.
All right.
Here we go, baby.
On here.
That's fine.
Ooh, I'm gonna put on your necklace.
That's fine.
All right, there you go.
Is it on?
Yeah, no, that's the right way.
This
To the right.
This was right?
Yes, ma'am.
And I just do that. Can you hear me?
Nice and loud. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Kimberly Tyka Morris. I'm a United States Navy sailor. I am a woman. We have fought for women's rights to serve in the United States military. And now you're under attack. And I am
the way.
All the way.
Right like that. And you just
Same
hold it up
thing.
and talk. Nice and loud.
All right, hi y'all. My name is Olivia. I'm very proud to be here tonight with my fellow women and men who support women. This is what I have to say. The time of my life during which I was most embroiled in liberal gender ideology coincided with the period during which I was also human trafficked. For me, the correlation was certainly causal. So indoctrinated into the cult of sex work as empowerment, and anyone who feels like a woman is a woman, was I that discernment, boundaries, and advocating for myself went out the window. I had been peddled the lie that sex work was not only a reasonable means of survival, but that I would be magically reconnected with my sexuality, empowered to be some kind of god among humans by wielding my power over men. But my internalized misogyny led me to see womanhood as a state of meekness and weakness. Simultaneously, my soul knew that embarking upon this path necessitated an abandonment of myself and my womanhood as sacred and precious. Thus, I adopted an identity of non-binary. My thinking actually was, I can't be harmed if I'm not woman or man. I'm untouchable if I'm some amorphous third thing. This logic was only reinforced every time I opened my Instagram feed. Before I knew it, every aspect of my life was controlled by a man who called himself my manager, who also adopted this ideology, for the record. I will not expand on the horrors that ensued. I will only say, I learned in gruesome detail how our society perceives womanhood. In their view, woman simply means receptacle, recipient of the putrid violence acted out by men. I retreated further into an abandonment of my womanhood to cope. I was in denial of what had happened to me and the other woman I had met in the belly of this horrific beast. In the years since, through the patient, loving sisterhood and bravery of women, I have come to accept what this experience actually was. It was violence against women, acted out by men seeking to control us because of our physical realities as adult human females and non-adult. Healing from my time in trafficking has meant coming home to womanhood. It has involved being held by women in spaces of only women. It has required the genuine reconnection to and rebuilding of trust with my cervix, my female anatomy, assuring her again and again that she will not be abandoned. I am no longer willing to be silenced into submission. I am here to proclaim that this machine of violence and erasure of women is not our legacy. Our legacy is this public record of dissent, is holding the line for our sisters, our mothers, and our daughters. Our legacy is the preservation and reinstatement of women-only spaces. It is the honoring and celebration of our female bodies as they are. Thank you. Okay.
Excuse me. Yep. Just nice and loud, just like that.
Right there.
Yep, go ahead. Other way. Yep, perfect. No, other way. Sorry. Yep, just like that. You're good. Just speak right in through there.
I'm Marjorie Stakely from Dallas, Texas. I'm 60 years old, and I am a biologist. I have a Master of Science in Biology. I understand that every cell in the human body and in the mammalian body and the vertebrate body has a complete set of all the chromosomes. Every cell in our bodies is either male or female. And even people who have disorders of sexual development are more towards male or else more towards female, and they don't appreciate their condition being appropriated by corporations. I couldn't help but notice all the corporate sponsorships in the parade behind me. We have no corporate sponsorships. Woo! We are truly a grassroots movement. We're crowdfunded by females and male supporters who donated to this event. Trans women are men. Men cannot be lesbians. Sexual exploitation by the sex industry is not work, is contractual rape, is not empowering, and is not a career. Abusive sex is not love. I understood this in 1975 when I read an article in a major magazine about a theater troupe lifting up abusive, violent sex now known as BDSM. I was horrified. I not only saw a slippery slope to abuse, I also saw a slippery slope to fascism. And that is exactly what happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Does that even work?
Yeah. This picks up it goes directly.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It doesn't amplify. It just picks up the light. Got it. Did you have the mic?
Hello, women! Sisters! How many women here have been assaulted, harassed, intimidated? I would venture that most of us have been. This isn't about men wearing lipstick. This isn't about men wearing dresses. This is about the legal dismantling of sex as a legal category and gender self-ID. We will not stand for it. Our lives are on the line. Thank you.
Okay. All right, you want to close us out, Michelle?
Like that, right? Women! Yes! Thank you so much for coming, for being brave, for standing up to actual fascists in masks, cloaked in kindness and inclusion.
Cowards and masks! Cowards!
As we are being paraded with corporations and government entities while they talk about oppression, we know who is being oppressed in this fight. It's women and girls, sex-based rights. Thank you so much for standing up for women, for truth, for reality, for biology. Thank you. Pick up all your stuff, please, because we want you successful. Thank you to all the women who came out. I didn't even use this.
That's okay. That's okay.
Let women speak!
All right. Hey, you guys. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you all for coming today. Thanks for listening, being here on the live stream. Thank you for supporting all these amazing women. I appreciate you being here, watching us, being with us. It's just as important as being here. This is the public record of our dissent, and your shares, your likes, your comments really make it happen. So please spread this video far and wide. I think we had about 30 women speaking today. We probably had about 100 here in total. This is Austin Pride that we're standing in front of. That's why you see this parade. So thank you for making this record happen. We appreciate you. Bye.